Welcome to the video lecture on data volume and usage analysis. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of slides to give you an example using the Pine Valley Furniture Company of exactly what we're talking about as far as making estimates. All right, so we have logical design, so this looks very familiar. This looks like an ERD, and it is. But there is a little bit more to this, right? All of a sudden we have these arrows with numbers associated with them. We have percentages. We have arrows going in different directions. So now we have a little bit more going on in this usage map. So here we're talking about Pine Valley Furniture, and we're talking about parts. Part is a super type. We have two subtypes. We have manufactured part and we have purchased parts. And obviously from the O, we know that a part can be both manufactured and purchased at the same time. A purchased part is going to come from a supplier, but the relationship between purchased part and supplier is a many-to-many. That's being broken down by using an associative entity called supplies. Right? So let's take a look at what actually is going on here. So within the entity boxes, we've got data volume estimates. So we're basically saying that in the part entity, there are going to be 3,000 records. And from those 3,000 records, those records are dispersed amongst the manufactured parts and the purchased parts. I know, you're sitting there saying to yourself, hey, if I add up 1,200 and 2,100, that's more than 3,000. Well, remember, the type of subtypes that these are, we have parts that can be both manufactured and purchased, right? So, since that's the case, we have actually 3,300 parts. And then you can see that because if you look at the 40% and the 70%, that's 110%. So there you go. That leads us to our 3,300. So again, if you're doing the calculations, relax. So here are the data volumes for supplier and supply. So we have 150 different suppliers that supply our 2,100 purchased parts. And obviously we can have the same purchased parts coming from multiple suppliers, and suppliers supplying us with multiple purchased parts, and that is why the 6,000 is the number of records in the supplies table. So there are estimates on data volumes. Now we're going to take a look at our access frequencies, and that's what these numbers are. So the numbers with the arrows are the access frequencies, and we're estimating these per hour. And this is going to lead us to, what kind of processors do we need? If this is the kind of accesses we're going to get, we're going to get into types of accesses in another scenario. But here we're seeing that we've got 20,000 hits per hour to our part table. We've got 7,500 hits to our supplier table. We've got 6,000 hits directly to purchased part, right? So if we've got people accessing our tables, sometimes they're going directly to purchased part instead of to part first. And then we can see the 14,000 is that after a person accesses the part entity, 14,000 of those 20,000 go to subsequently go to purchased part. And then we can see the same thing with suppliers. So the supplier gets 7,500 hits after a person accesses the supplier table. 4,000 of those times they actually go to the supplies table, and then after they get to the supplies table, they subsequently almost always go to the purchase part. So you can see that if you go from supplier to supplies, you've got 4,000, and that same 4,000 go from supplies back to purchase part. And again, it's just an association table, so that's fairly common. Going back the other way, we've got 14,000 hits that went to purchased part, and we've got 6,000 that go directly to purchased part. Of that combination, we've got 8,000 that go from purchased part to supplies, And then after you go to supplies, we've got another 7,000 that went back to actually check on the supplier. So that's how this map works. Again, it's all covered in the book, so I'm not going to go too crazy with that, but I think you need to have this explained. Then, so the usage analysis, and again, here's just a further explanation of what I just said. So we got 14,000 people purchased parts access per hour. Of those, 8,000 of them then went to the supplies, and then 7,000 actually went back to the supplier for quotations. And the same thing in this slide, and now we're looking at usage analysis, going from the 7,500 people, 7,500 hits per hour that went to supplier, 4,000 of those went to supplies, and 100% of that, or again, 4,000 went back to purchase part. And that is how a usage analysis map works. And this is what, in reality, we would have to make estimates for these so that we can figure out who's accessing what entities at what rate and how big are these. And then, again, we would have to decide, well, how big are these going to get over time? Think about it. Parts, we're probably not going to be adding too many more parts, right? We're a manufacturer, or we purchase them, so the rate of growth of the part is probably, the part entity is probably not going to be that large. Supplier is probably the same way. All right, so the numbers and the volumes are probably fairly steady, depending on the growth of our company. If our company starts growing and starts getting more diversified, all of these numbers are going to start growing and changing. So we have to make sure that when we purchase our servers and our hardware, that our hardware is capable of dealing with whatever kind of growth estimates we put together for the next 5 years. And the 5 years is typical. 4 to 5 years is usually the lifespan of a server. So when you purchase a server, you need to purchase a server that's going to service you for only the next 4 to 5 years. Don't go out and buy yourself a server that's going to last you for 10 years, because it's going to be basically a paperweight in 5 years. So these are the purchasing decisions that have to be made. So I want to make sure you are aware of that. And that is the end of the data volumes and usage analysis lecture.